Hi, we are Snake Solver team. We are trying to create an AI that can solve the snake game. Our default environment is an 8x8 arena surrounded by bounds and obstacles, which is the blue blocks. Uh, it will have 1 foot spawning. The snake can take action up, down, left, or right. Uh, the game will end when the snake goes out of bound, or it hits an obstacles, or it hit itself. When the snake eat a food, it will get +1 reward. When it reaches terminal state, it will get -1 reward. Otherwise, there is no reward. We set up our environment using Gymnasium and train our model using stable baseline 3 for the A2C and PPO algorithm. Later on, we also use our own custom convolutional neural network instead of the default one by stable baseline 3. Due to the large state space of the game, we use reinforced learning to train the AI. There are two phases in our training process. First, we need to choose between which algorithm to use, A2C or PPO. And then after we choose the algorithm, we will use that algorithm to train the model with in various scenarios. So we need to choose A2C or PPO in phase one. We try to use the default environment to train a model for each for A2C and PPO and then compare the performance between the two algorithms. As we can see here, the performance of A2C is much better than PPO within 10 million training steps. So we opt to choose A2C for phase two. In phase one, we use the convolution neural network implemented by stable baseline 3, but in phase two, we use our own custom CNN, which is inspired by ResNet and Llama architecture. Uh, it uses Squiggle activation function, residual connection for faster training and better performance, and it uses enhanced feature extractor for better observation capturing. So using A2C and our own custom CNN, we train a model for each of the following four scenarios, which is the default scenario, extra food, middle obstacle, and wall obstacle. We will go over it in a second. The first scenario is the default scenario, which is basically just an empty 8x8 arena. Uh, the average score is around 7.2. Uh, the snake is capable of avoiding walls and obstacles. When the next is shorter, it is capable of avoiding itself. But when it gets longer, most of the time, as we can see here, it bites itself. Here, maybe. Yeah. The second scenario I want to talk about is extra food, which is basically the default scenario, but instead of 1 food only, now it spawns an extra food. The normal food is colored green, and the extra food is colored blue here. When if you eat the normal food before eating the extra food will disappear. So the snake gotta have to like try to eat the extra food before eating the normal food so that it can get better score. The performance of this scenario is around 5.7 score, which is a bit lower than the default scenario. But as you can see here, the snakes managed capable to learn to eat the extra food before eating the normal food. But it still has the same issues of unable to avoid biting itself. The third scenario that I want to talk about is the middle obstacle, which is basically you put an obstacle in the middle of an empty 8x8 arena, and the size of the obstacle here is 4 by 4. And in order to train this, we have to remove the penalty for the terminal state. Otherwise it wouldn't work at all. The snake performs pretty well, but has an average score of 3.1, but which is quite lower than the default scenario. But I think it managed to avoid the middle obstacle, which is a good thing. The last scenario that I want to talk about is the worst scenario, which is an empty 8x8 arena split in half with a wall with a hole in the middle. So the snake have to learn to navigate through this wall and grab the food spawning on each side. Uh, the same as the previous obstacle, we have to remove the penalty for the terminal state. Otherwise, it wouldn't work at all. The snake would get too scared if we to pass to cross the hole if we left the penalty on. Uh, the the average score for this scenario is 4.9, which is basically almost the same as the default scenario, which is quite good. And the snake, as you can see here, it learns to traverse through the hole and get the food quite efficiently. In general, we have achieved our baseline goal, which is in the default scenario, our snake has a length equal to the side of an arena. In this case, which is length 8 for an 8x8 arena. The reason why we choose 8x8 arena instead of larger is basically because the larger arena will take way too long to train, and the snake will take a long time before it managed to eat a food. We also achieve goal one, which is the extra food scenario where the snakes are capable of prioritizing eating the extra food before they're eating the normal food. We also achieve goal two, which is uh, the capability to avoid obstacles like the obstacle in the middle and the wall obstacles. There are several issues with our training process. It is still way too inefficient and way too slow, and the results aren't exactly stellar. But we're 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 still satisfied with it. There's also the problem with the snake keeps biting itself, and it doesn't really try to plan ahead of its move, and only try to avoid. Um, Basically, it lacks foresight, so it cannot really predict and plan ahead how to not biting itself.